Stuck in the Catch Fence live stream. We got a guest on the show today, and we're also going to be breaking down the new schedule. Thank God it only took about 3 months for it to come out, longer than what we're expecting. And then we'll talk about everybody kung fu fighting at Talladega and the fines issued from there. Let's get into it. Thank you, Daryl Cartrip from the hit series movie Cars. My name is Ryan Peters, join you like always, and I'm joined by a special guest, Travis Butt. Travis, how are you doing on this wonderful Wednesday evening?
Oh, you can't beat a Wednesday. So hump day, get the week over with. Every day's closer to the NASCAR race.
Well, I mean, most of us are working really hard in the week. You've been doing obviously some painting due to your favorite Pepsi product, and it looks pretty good back there. I'm not gonna lie. There you go. Okay.
It's only Pepsi only. There's no water in this diet. It's Pepsi and everything.
Yeah, hashtag not a sponsor. So I wanted to bring you on. Obviously you were at Talladega this past weekend. We got to talk a little bit about it. We were there, enjoyed it very, very much, but figured it's your birthday. So happy birthday to you first and foremost, but wanted to bring you on the show to talk a little bit of motorsports. You yourself have done a little bit of motorsports. I'm not sure if you've seen this before. I'm sure everybody else had. Look at that. I mean, victory lane right there. So, yeah, you've done a little bit of motorsporting yourself. So let everybody know a little bit about Travis Butt.
Yeah, so been racing for a little bit. Always a huge Jeff Gordon fan growing up. Always been a dream of mine to be a race car driver. We race dirt for the most part. So, when we go race dirt, it's always still the dream to be asphalt. You always want to be the one that goes and races asphalt, and, you kind of grew up on that. So we do racing. We race dirt right here at Lawrenceburg Speedway. It's in Indiana. And then we, progress going through that. So we used to race a pure stock, which is kind of like a Monte Carlo, but for next year, we hopefully go to a dirt modified, kind of like what Kenny Wallace is racing and things like that. And then you never know when you go to a super late model later on.
There you go. So you obviously parked her in victory lane this year. You've raced for a little while now. So you've been a part of it, not just on the track, but obviously enjoying it, the NASCAR scene and things like that. Obviously, Hendrick Motorsports, not a certain driver that you like from Hendrick.
Oh, you couldn't tell, right?
No, I don't have any idea. I mean, other people may be able to figure it out, but I have no idea.
Oh, when you're a dirt racer, you got to support the people that do that stuff. So you got to be a Kyle Larson fan. It's hard not to be his fan.
I thought you were gonna say Bubba Wallace.
Oh Lord, well that's for a different time. But no, like I said, we have a lot of fun. Dirt guys. If no one's ever been to a dirt race, go down to the pit sometime. It is the most incredible thing. Everyone helps each other. There's no hide. It's everyone trying to help anyone. I can't tell you how many times I've changed a tire on another person's car or, whatever, and helped them out before. So it's not like in, NASCAR, everyone's kind of just in their little community. Everyone helps each other. And, you won't find a better brotherhood is what I call it.
Right. Yeah. It's always a great time. If you ever get a chance to support your local dirt track, you got all kinds of people there. From your age, you're just now still in your mid-20s to what we saw on Saturday night, people that are 92 years old and Red Farmers. So, I mean, it is literally quite the span of people and, just an awesome, awesome time, to go down there. I do want to say hello to a couple guys tuning in. We got Zach says he sees some new meat on the show or his fridge or you know what? We may not even get into that at all. So we'll just go ahead and turn that off. John Forster, I mean, he's ready to go. I'm excited to go to WWT on June 2nd. I'm also going to Indy on July 21st. My birthday present, and bring my daughter along and maybe some friends. Well, hopefully you enjoy that.
That's what we did this weekend. We went with a bunch of friends.
That's right. So again, my name is Ryan Peters. This is Travis Butt, and I don't want any more jokes or anything moving forward from that. So welcome to the channel, everyone. If you would like to, you can do two things that are really free and really quick. You can like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't do one of those two things, no, you don't have to do that either. You can piss off. So let's jump into the quick question. we both went to Talladega. I want to get your opinions first. What was your thoughts of the race itself and also the venue for people that have never been?
Yeah, so it's awesome. So the last time I went was in 05. So 18 years, it's a long time. Incredible race in my opinion. We went to the truck race, which was a good race. I know we got a little bit more talk about that, but for the cup race, when you see that many lead changes, I think there 70 I was the most
plus,
since
yeah.
I think I was most since like 2011, that's awesome. And, I don't know how many times we kept saying, oh, that the high line's coming in. Oh, it's going to be 3 wide. All the runs. Someone was able to push someone up front. There's passing in my opinion. We talked about Slick Rick. Ricky Stenhouse. He was able to start 36th and come up to the front in the first 7 or 8 laps. You got to be aggressive with that stuff. And I think the way the packages are, and I know you and I talked a lot of packages too, but they were able to make passes. They were able to.
Well, our packages we talked about. We're not. This is off-camera conversation. That's not. Let's move forward from that.
But they had plenty of passing opportunities. People were able to switch lines. The crazy part too, in my opinion, was they were able to draft and they were able to be kind of aggressive on some push drafts, and you didn't see wrecks. I know Carson Hocevar wrecked from a hard push, but that's kind of the inexperience. And I think Brad Case in his interview best of he had to learn somehow.
Right. Yeah. We do have a comment from Zach. He said that such a fun track on the tube. Imagine it's awesome in person. The thing that I would say, and we had tickets in the tri-oval that were 66 rows up. And while it is absolute hell to get up to the 66th row from somebody fat and short like myself that has a very, very small legs and even smaller lungs, and that part sucked. But being there, got to see the whole entire track, 2.5 miles long, and I can't explain it more than it's the biggest track outside of Indy. Indy feels like its own world when you're inside of Indy. Talladega still feels like a track. It still feels like, this awesome experience. And the fact that it's so wide is something else that you don't really get to see it until you've been to multiple tracks. I've been to Kentucky Speedway. I've went to Michigan. I've been to Martinsville. And you really don't get a sense of how wide Talladega really is until you see them running 4 wide at 180 mile an hour. You're like, holy cow, they can't do this anywhere else except maybe – like California, rest in peace, California in Fontana that no longer exists. So we won't see that anymore. But, it's an awesome experience in person. And what set it off is Daytona showed that these guys can race 3 wide. And we didn't see that last year. We saw that very, very briefly at times at Atlanta, but it's not that wide. When they go 3 wide there, you're puckering up your butt cheeks because there's just no room. So what we saw at the Daytona night race really set the stage. And that's what I was talking to you guys, when we were there. I'm like, I'm hoping we see 3 wide because they showed it could go 3 wide. And once they did that, I think the racing from moving forward, probably not at Atlanta because it's not built that way, but moving forward, I think now we're going to see that guys can go 3 wide. I saw some complaints like on by a few crew chiefs that were like, they don't like the package. People only went 3 wide to save fuel. But any reason to go 3 wide and any other different types of strategies where it usually traditionally makes a great race. I don't care if you're saving fuel or not. Everybody being on different strategies, everybody doing different things is what typically makes a good race. You have comers and goers. And, we saw that. And you brought up Ricky Stenhouse, which is still a sore subject because some dumbass runs out of fuel at the end of stage 1 and, gives Kyle Busch damage. I digress. I don't want to talk about that. So, great time. I highly recommend it to anybody to go, especially now. Last year I was a little bit worried because they only went 2 wide. It was kind of hard to pass. Moving forward, I think the drivers are figuring out the car and that, you can go back and forth. So, it's a great time. But let's go ahead. We have a lot of NASCAR news, so let's dive into it. All right. So you don't get to hear that anymore, Travis. That's gone.
That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, oh shit, there's a tire. So
we did see a few tires this weekend.
We did. Actually, we almost had one come at us at the Talladega short track. So that was something.
We did.
So we had a a brawl, if you want to call it that, because we never got to see the brawl. We got to see the aftermath of the brawl, but we never got to see the brawl. So if you're new to this sort of information, because again, I was at Talladega, Travis was at Talladega, we never got to discuss it, but there was a fight between an old man and a young man. I'm guessing the old man didn't get scratched up too much because we never got to see him afterwards. He did go on Twitter, which most strong keyboard warriors do to defend themselves. And, he said that he was unhappy with Nick Sanchez, and this was Matt Crafton versus Nick Sanchez. And what we saw was Nick Sanchez with blood streaming down his face, said possibly a broken nose, got into a fight. Matt Crafton parked his truck in Nick Sanchez's pit box. So obviously he wanted to talk to him at the very least. And Nick Sanchez wasn't there. Nick Sanchez says that he got tapped on the shoulder and then beat in the face. Matt Crafton went on Twitter and said that's not really what happened. I started talking to him for a little bit. He started using explicatives. So then I hit him in the face. Nonetheless, Nick Sanchez got a $5,000 fine for getting punched in the face and also, repeatedly shouting that he's going to kill somebody. And Matt Crafton was fined $25,000. Now, what makes this unique is typically on fines, we don't see any type, or typically on fights, we don't see any type of fines. Earlier this year, Noah Gragson did all he could for Ross Chastain to punch him in the face. And Ross Chastain says, I'll oblige. I'll finally punch you in the face since you're not going to leave. And there was nothing from that. But some people, Travis, wanted more. Do you think, based upon what we know, which is still, we have the very grainy footage in 2023, do you think this was the right call? Do you think it should have been more? Do you think it should be less? Let me hear what you think.
It kind of goes both ways. I think, he was waiting for him afterwards. I think could have probably did it a little different. I think if it gets to the heated moment, you have the right to, do some of that. We see pit road brawls all the time. I think that the fines for it probably are meant to be, I know we kind of discussed a little bit about maybe there's a suspension. I think Matt might have saved himself a little bit by kind of explaining the situation on Twitter. He could have had some officials that he talked to. I think they both justify each other. I think the Nick Sanchez probably small fine, yes. I think Matt's $25,000 fine, it's probably equivalent to probably more like a $75,000 fine in the Cup Series. That's still a hefty fine for someone that races in the Truck Series. In my opinion, I thought maybe, when NASCAR went to the point of, hey, gloves are off, like this is all for you guys. You guys do what you want. I think NASCAR took that into consideration. But if you look at the rule book, I looked at it when we was coming back from Talladega, and it did say, I don't know the exact terms of it, but it was talking about, any fighting or anything like that, there is a penalty in that. So it was kind of shocking a little bit that he didn't get a race suspension. I know talking to Bob Pockris at the racetrack, he thought that Matt was going to get a suspension. So I think I think a lot of people are shocked that he didn't get the suspension, but I think the fine does probably justify it, especially if it was a cheap shot. Especially being a 47-year-old to a 22-year-old kid.
Well, I mean, like Zach said, that's old man strength. That's dad strength.
That is true. I think
it looked like a dad fighting his son. I mean, to be completely
exactly. Thank you to the Roper. I can't think of his first name. Truck Series driver 04, holding Sanchez's back. I think it might have helped him from not getting any more bloodier, if we're going to be honest with you, or maybe two black eyes. But I think there's no fine if he handles that differently. Then they just let the boys have at it. I think Matt got the fine because I think he sucker punched him a little bit, no matter what he said. So I think based off his eye and the nose of Sanchez, I think there was a little bit of a sucker punch, but like you said, it was a blurry video and everything else with that. But I guess like Joseph said, he's just got some dog in him still. It's got some fight in him.
Well, I think two things can happen. I think you can be upset about something, and in today's culture, today's society, it's more likely that people would like to go argue it out on Twitter than argue it out in person. You've been behind the steering wheel. I'm sure people have pissed you off, and people have, rubbed you the wrong way, both literally and literally. But it's just, I'm wondering if Matt Crafton wouldn't have escalated if Nick Sanchez talked to him. That's the part of me that goes, okay, he clearly wants to talk to you. I don't know. I'd call it a coward, but you clearly don't want to talk to him. So would it have escalated if Nick would have just done the man-on-man thing, the old school thing, and say, hey, let's talk about our differences? We don't know what was said, and I think that's a lot. I think NASCAR has more information than what we have, because there are videos of people literally at the fight videotaping it that that's not been released to the public. So I'm sure NASCAR was able to confiscate that information, and they did not wait long. I mean, they announced it like 8 o'clock on Tuesday. So they made a very quick stance upon this. But my other thought is, if you find somebody because you say it's wrong, and this is kind of the tug and pull I have with NASCAR, and the NFL's done this at time too. You better not see it in any of your stingers next year whenever you show the Talladega truck race.
Yep.
Because that's the part that just drives me nuts. Is like, we condone these actions, but next year when you renew your Talladega tickets, make sure you come and watch, because somebody could be fighting on pit lane. Like we've seen a million times from the Noah Gragson and Ross Chastain incident, which there was no fine. So it is what it is. I think the reason why he got fined is because of the blood. Honestly, God, it looked bad. So I think that's why Matt Crafton got fined, is because it looked bad. So NASCAR's like, oh, shit, we got to do something. And then on the other side, Nick Sanchez is literally saying that he's going to end his life. So then NASCAR's like, well, we got to do something about that. The guy that got the biggest penalty was Renee Sanchez, who's not allowed to come back to NASCAR for the rest of the season, which is Nick's dad. And I don't know if he escalated the situation or not. They did not say why. But, I think it is what it is. I wouldn't have had a problem if NASCAR said, all right, guys, from now on, if you do fight, it's going to be a suspension. And I would have had a problem if they suspended Matt Crafton, because they've not suspended people before. And you can't just start now. I think you got to stick to your guns, then make the rule and say, hey, we've been letting the fighting go for a while. We want you guys to handle it. Granted, as you would probably say this, Travis, it's better to get punched in the face than right hooked into the wall.
Oh, easily. I think there's a lot of people that feel that.
And I think that's why NASCAR has always had this stance. But I would say moving forward, using your mouth in the right way to discuss what happened on the track, and we don't know. I mean, this is all, armchair quarterback after it all happens. Matt Crafton could have had a civilized conversation, said, hey, I don't appreciate you pushing me in that situation. Stick to your lane. You're a young driver. You got a lot to learn, but this is not how we do it. And instead, he didn't want to talk to him. He had to run him down. And then Nick Sanchez could have said something that he just said, you know what? I want to punch this guy in the face. Yeah, not saying any of those things are right.
And I think part of NASCAR had the bad thing about NASCAR, what they thought was, there's a heat of the moment. I can think of a couple situations where I was kind of in my car, pissed off at the world about it. Then I talked to someone for 10 minutes and I wasn't that mad anymore. And I was able to have a civil conversation with the driver. I think what NASCAR saw with it as well was, all right, this was like 25 minutes after the wreck, 30 minutes after the wreck. And then, you went over there, then there was a fight, I think the video, I don't care who they talked to, but, the video made it look really bad on Matt Crafton and not so much Sanchez. Now Sanchez did tell him he was going to end his life, but I think it looked worse on Crafton. And I know you and I watched a video when we were sitting in the stands trying to watch qualifying. We're like, who punched him? Because you couldn't even tell who punched him.
We still, it took people to say it, who punched him. We still had no idea. You never see it.
So I think it looks like Beto a bath, but I think I totally agree with you. I think if they would have suspended him for a race, I think we'd have been shocked a little bit, and it would have added more controversy.
We do have a couple comments here. We have quite a bit of comments. You guys are very active tonight. Travis bringing that heat. So I think Sanchez got a lesson on how you settle a disagreement the old school way, and Joe refers to something that may or may not have came out of my mouth at a bar. So we won't bring that back up in case there's any witnesses for that. I'm trying to look. Zach, he's ready for hockey, so he's looking at hockey, taking the fighting out of his game. Hockey's for everyone, Zach.
Yeah,
except for maybe Ivan Provorov.
I think Sanchez would have been kicked off the team if they saw his fighting skills on that. They wouldn't have kept him.
Yeah, well, and his last name's Sanchez. It only looks bad because it's 1990s justice, not PC justice. So, all right, now moving on to something you and I have been waiting for. We talked about it for a long time. On the way back on our 7+ hour drive, is the NASCAR schedule has finally been released. I know you went to the tweet up with Bob Pockross. We were sitting there before the race ever started. Are we going to see double headers? Are we going to see a 2-week break? Are we going to see Atlanta in the spring? Are we going to, or in the essentially still the winter, or what are we going to see? And well, now we have our answer. So for those of you that have not seen it yet, this is the schedule. We have the Clash again, the Duels, the Daytona 500, Atlanta in February, then the brief West Coast. I don't know if you call it a swing anymore. It's a kind of a West Coast Airbnb style now, with Vegas, Phoenix come back for Bristol, which will be on pavement. Then we go Coda. Then we have the Virginia run with Richmond, Martinsville, Texas moving to the spring, which is new. So it doesn't have to be 125 degrees outside for that. Talladega, Dover, Kansas, Darlington. Then we have Wilkesboro for the All-Star race, and they will have new pavement on that. It will not be the old school pavement that we saw this past year. Then the Coca-Cola 600, WWT, Sonoma. A lot of people thought maybe that would move up to the West Coast swing. It is not. We still get to see Dead Grass Sonoma. Iowa, the biggest track that's been put on the schedule. We've never seen the Cup Series at Iowa. Then New Hampshire, Nashville, the Chicago Street Race, which actually still cannot happen because Chicago, the city, can end its contract in December. So that would be wild if they decide to do that. But hopefully we do get to see the Chicago Street Race. Pocono, and then we go to the traditional Brickyard 400 for the 30th year anniversary, which I'm not sure how you have an anniversary of something when you haven't done it for the last few years. The 2-week summer break for the Olympics, back to Richmond, Michigan, Daytona. And then the last race of the regular season will be the Darlington race and its traditional Labor Day, September 1st. And then we have Atlanta, Watkins Glen, and Bristol for the round of 16. That's different. Texas, Kansas, Talladega, and the Roval. And then the round of 8 is Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, and then the championship race at Phoenix. So all of that being said, Travis, what do you like? What do you dislike? And what are your overall thoughts of the schedule being released finally?
Yeah, I think it was something that's, long time coming. It feels like they didn't make any changes, so I was really confused why the schedule took so long. I think they had a really bad time with the 2-week break in there. So obviously, if you look at the dates, the season ends a week later than it usually does. So, and I think they got themselves in a little bit of a pickle as well when they announced some dates prior to releasing the schedule. So I think, when they released the Daytona 500 schedule, I don't think someone was really thinking that about the 2-week Olympic break. I think it's a good schedule. I like seeing there's not a whole lot of new tracks. I was wishing I've seen some old ones. I know someone put in here in the comments, Kentucky Speedway, Chicagoland. I wish they would, it's been a whole process with the next gen car of where they've been really good at. And it's been 1.5 miles. I was really glad to not see another road course added because I was kind of, I was going to be kind of upset a little bit if they added another road course. But Iowa, I think Iowa's going to be terrific. It's always put on a good Xfinity race. Just racing on iRacing, it's got multiple grooves, and that's what the next gen car needs. It needs multiple grooves. Yep. Iowa Speedway's got a bottom lane and a top lane, and the next gen I think is going to do. It's going to race kind of like a Nashville, but maybe I think just a little bit better than Nashville. But putting Watkins Glen into the round of 16?
Yeah, first round of 16.
I think and I think Watkins Glen is one of the few road courses that's put on a decent race in the next gen for road course wise. I think that's going to spice up a little bit. I do like the option of the season finale being at Darlington. I always felt really it was super dangerous putting the last round of Daytona because, if someone could have worked all year long and could have been that 16th seed, and then just to have someone that's raced 30th place all year long get in over someone you've beat all year long. If they ran that in the second last race, I think that looks a little bit better than just the last race. I'm thinking like Austin Dillon, with all the rain shortened last year, him getting in, and he didn't impress me at all throughout the year. So I think it's a good schedule. I think it's a great start. Excited about North Wilkesboro going back to the All-Star.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
I think the only thing I have an issue with, and I think you can elaborate this a little bit more, is Atlanta, the second race of the year. It kind of shocked me a little bit. I know there was a talk about Texas being the second race of the year, but there was a small chance of Atlanta being that second race. I kind of wish they would have. I think Texas might have been just a NT bits warmer, but hopefully there's a good weekend in. Hopefully it's a good weekend there after Daytona. The Atlanta might be a little bit warmer. I know you said last year you went and it was freezing.
Yeah, well, I went last year. This year was when it was freezing,
Mhm.
and Joe can contest to that. He stayed in a camper where it got down to like 30 something degrees, and his generator turned off. So if anybody was cold, it was Joseph Michael that went to that, and Joe said Atlanta can't get much colder. So I think we're gonna find out whenever it's in February. So like, yeah, I that was interesting that they're gonna go to they call it restrictor plate races, but the spacer races back to back. I think that's unique. We haven't seen that before. I honestly, I like the Daytona road course. I liked whenever we did Daytona, the Daytona road course. I'm with you though. I don't have to see more road courses. We can bring them in and out. That's fine. I feel like if the tracks want to do that and the fans pile in, at the same time, does NASCAR want to spend an entire month at Daytona? And that's essentially what you're asking for, by doing that. And I could see why the appeal loses itself with that. So yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure why Atlanta was the one that got the short end of the stick, that got the February race. So, there's plenty of other warmer climates. You could start the West Coast swing as soon as you get done with Daytona if you want to do it that way. It's not like they haven't done that before. I'm not sure about Watkins Glen in the playoffs. That it's interesting. I think it's actually more balanced because you got the Roval, you got Watkins Glen, you got Talladega, you got Atlanta, and then you got a couple mile and a half. So really, when you look at the first two rounds of the playoffs, each guy is going to go. Somebody like Michael McDowell, if he gets in next year, which I think he has a great chance of getting in next year, goes, oh, thank God we got in a restrictor plate in the first round because we can at least start off on the right foot. And Michael McDowell would also love a road course race because, he's been really good at road course racing too. So I think those type of things really help those guys out. But I'm with you on Darlington. I think putting Darlington as the last race of the regular season really sets away the best of the best when it comes to drivers, because the best drivers in the world still have a hard time racing at Darlington because you can be fast or you can be crazy and hit the wall. There is that edge, that razor's edge is right there. And not all of even the best drivers in the world still find themselves getting a Darlington stripe and have a hard time with that track. So putting the most technical track at the end is kind of like, all right, you want to graduate to the playoffs? Don't screw it up at Darlington. And there's going to be plenty of people not trying to screw it up that will still screw it up. So, I love that aspect versus like what you said. All right, guys, we're getting to the end of the year. So right before the playoffs start, here's a lottery ticket for somebody. And that just always kind of set bad with me. I saw some people go, well, it's Daytona. It could be at the end of the year, where it's been traditionally. I'm like, no, traditionally growing up, Daytona was in July 4th. So, I don't see the problem of moving it. At the same time, I feel like next year they'll probably move it back. But, Iowa, I'm excited like you are with it. It's a short track that'll probably race more like an intermediate track. It's just slightly less than a mile, but I don't think it's going to race like a short track like a Bristol or anything like that because, like you said, multiple grooves with this car, that's what you have to have based upon what we've seen. If NASCAR can make the short track package better, then it could be an amazing race for that track, and there's other drivers like Chase Briscoe said that's his most favorite track he want to be at. The thing that I think, to put a wet towel on it, we had a lot of anticipation there was going to be some crazy stuff with this. And at the end of the day, the craziest thing is we got a 2-week break and they went back to doing things the way they did. I wanted a dirt track. I'll be honest. I think that when we see on Easter, people typically don't go to Bristol for the normal day race. They just don't. They never have. So I don't mind Bristol going back there to the concrete. I probably at this point, if they're not going to fix the car, that we just run it one time because, I mean, the Bristol night race sucked. If we're just going to be completely honest, it was a snooze fest. It racing during the day when it's probably going to get rained on again, like it always does in the early part of the schedule. I felt like we could have went to a very prestigious dirt track anywhere and drawn a nice crowd. I mean, you could have went to a dirt track in Knoxville and then had the Iowa Speedway race. I think that'd be badass. That would be something that we could have done back to back and done something of that nature. But, we'll see. I think a lot of people that were clamoring for the old school schedule, two asphalt races at Bristol, and then the traditional Indy race are going to go, I remember why we don't do this now. And there's a reason why NASCAR got away with it. But at the same time, you can never please NASCAR fans. They are very vocal, and they do not know what they want from one week to the next. So hopefully, with the options that we have now, though, Travis, the only thing I would say is keep expanding on where we're going. Never, ever feel like you have to go to the same racetrack twice. The only things I would say crown jewel-wise is Daytona and Darlington. Outside of that, I'm okay if they don't go to any track twice. We got plenty of tracks. You mentioned Kentucky right behind me, Chicagoland. I feel like up north and Wisconsin deserves another race. The way that the fans went there, it took a long time for stage breaks, but at the end of the day,
Talking
I'm
about
glad
Rockingham too.
yeah,
Rockingham,
exactly.
yeah.
They're supposed to be repaving Rockingham. I think a lot of people were expecting that to happen. With this new pavement, are we going to see North Wilkesboro be a point race? Thank God the Clash is not a point race. Otherwise, it would have looked like that modified feature we went to the other night and was 8 laps in and 45 minutes long. So, overall, I had high expectations. I wouldn't say they weren't met, but I just kind of went, oh. I was like, oh, okay.
And I think, at the LA Coliseum, I'll be honest with you, I hadn't been the biggest fan of that race. I think there's just not enough. You can just shove someone out of the way or wreck somebody. I kind of like you. I think it's a snooze fest in my opinion. I think it's a good atmosphere for people to go to, but I think I could think of about 10 of the places that I'd rather have it at, or things like that. And I think kind of go on to the point of Atlanta as well. You got to remember, if it's going to be cold in Atlanta, you got added horsepower and added grip. So, if we wanted that to kind of be like the old Talladega and the old Daytona, where, as it wears, handling comes into play and it's fast and slick and everything, we're going to have a lot of grip when we go to Atlanta, if it's going to be any like cold, like it was when you guys went, and it's going to be faster, which, all NASCAR fans love to say we won't go faster, but there's some things, like I said, I think there's some thought process, but it's just kind of like we said earlier, if, we talked about Montreal and all these places that we're going to go to, why did we wait till October 4th to release the schedule when it feels like nothing changed besides a few dates getting moved around?
Right. Yeah. And I think that, as Zach here said, that Atlanta was amazing this year. If the weather is right, it's going to be an amazing follow-up to Daytona. And I do agree with that. I agree that I think Atlanta following the Daytona 500, if the Daytona 500 is an amazing race, then Fox, if they can stop stepping over themselves and onto their feet and shooting themselves in the foot with their production, then they can say, hey, guess what? We get to do Daytona Light going to Atlanta next week if you like this action. So, definitely could do that if Fox has the ability to do so.
Can you imagine an Atlanta night race there with a super speedway? Oh my gosh! Well, maybe do it later on in the year. Don't do it when it's cold because no one's going to be out there. But I think it'd have a pretty fun little race there when that second round or first round, and get a little night race. That'd be kind of fun.
That would be. John says that he would love to see them at Eldora. I would too, but I guess Tony Stewart has hold the keys to that castle. So we are going to move on, and now we will be jumping into the race preview as we head to the Charlotte Roval. That audio was actually captured straight from Travis's car.
My motor doesn't sound that good. We had some motor issues towards the end of the year. Mine sounds a little bit sicker than that.
Yeah, a little underwatery kind of.
It's got, you go into the garage now and it smells like burnt oil. So we'll get that replaced.
I thought that was my wife's cooking. And it's your wife's car. So before we get started, let's go ahead and look at where the drivers sit right now. Here we go. Not sure why Kyle Larson's on there, but it is what it is. Post Talladega, you got Denny Hamlin. It would take a miracle for him not to get in. I think if he finishes with 1 stage point, then he'll probably lock himself in. Christopher Bell, pretty comfortable. Same with Chris Buescher and Truex. Larson, again, 15 points. As long as he doesn't have a catastrophic failure, it should be okay. And then that's where things get interesting. It's going to be vying for Brad Keselowski's spot unless you end up winning the race. Brad is only 2 points to the good. And then you have Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, and Ross Chastain within 10 points. And then my driver, Kyle Busch, pretty much has to win the race because he does not know how to get stage points, especially at Talladega. So, and you got to see that firsthand, Travis, when your driver doesn't get stage points and then me beating on a chair and the person beside that chair look at you very, very funny. So going into the race before we make our picks and who do you think is in, who do you think is out, what are your expectations for the Roval? Do you like the Roval first off? Because that was actually a racetrack they were saying possibly they go back to just Charlotte twice. So number one, do you like them racing at the Roval and the concept of it? And what are you expecting from the track itself?
I think it was really, I think it did its purpose. I think the first year they went was 2018, 2019. I think it did it. I think it's run its course. I think it's done its purpose. I think it's actually neat. I just don't think the next gen is made for the road courses. I think when they came out with the next gen, they wanted these are going to be road courses. It's going to be just like the sports class, blah, blah, blah. I think with all that big tire they got, how good a brake system, things like that, I think it's ran its course. I mean, if I remember last year's race, there wasn't nothing special. I think it's a cool track. I'm thinking like 2020, 2021. You just it's a good track, but I'd like to see it go back on Roval, especially when we've seen how the Coke 600's gone.
Good point.
I Coke 600's been incredible.
Is the Coke 600 the last 2 years been awesome.
Oh, it's been incredible. I mean, if you want to watch it, you get someone to watch a NASCAR race, given it's long. But I mean, how incredible has those last 2 Coke 600s have been? You can't beat them. So it's kind of hard when you go back to the Roval and you're like, oh God, another road course. I think you still expect action. What's weird about this time is they have only a 2-point cushion. You got Brad K. You got Reddick. 2-point cushion. So you got those people that are all within 10 points of each other that might be a little bit aggressive. I think Larson's not going to really go for the win. I think he's going to go more of the he's going to go more for stage points and things like that. But there's I think it's still going to be exciting there at the Roval.
Well, and we will have to say this: there are stage breaks coming back for this race, so you will have to have the decision of going for stage points or going for the win. Alan Gustafson famously always would go for stage points before he would go for the win, and that's when Chase Elliott was dominating at these road course races. So there will be some strategy, and that's my favorite part of watching NASCAR during these type of things is the fact that there are strategy. I want to see people have to make tough decisions. I want to see if it ends up working out. I want to see if somebody goes galaxy brain and is able to find a way to do both. Because there are some guys that are out there able to do the calculations to do both. And sometimes there's guys out there that says, well, hey, when you're on your fuel reserve, you can run 3 more laps and you may get 2 more turns and you run out of gas. So, it sets up the possibility of really, really good things, some really, really bad things. I will say this. I agree with you 100% on it's not what it was. And what it was, well, I'm going to have 2 shorts put out here tomorrow and Friday. The very first one, 2018, you had Martin Truex Jr., Jimmy Johnson, both coming down to try to get the win. And Ryan Blaney won and scraping the side. It wasn't necessarily the Hail Melon, but Kyle Larson, as Jeffrey Earnhardt is spin out, and Kyle Larson is pretty much running at a gingerly 12 mile an hour against the wall, made it in. So the drama for that one was amazing. And then the next year, is either the next year or the following year after that. The title is Chase versus Kevin versus Turn 1 is when, you had the incident at Bristol where Kevin Harvick felt like he was supposed to win that race and he did not because Chase was blocking him so that his fellow teammate driver at Hendrick could win. And then Kevin Harvick said, well, I'm just going to dump Chase because I'm not in the playoffs anymore. And then looking in his rearview mirror, he then dumped himself. So we've had
2021. So
21. Okay, 21. Yep. So we've had some high drama there, and I think that if we get that again, it'll be an amazing race. But like you said, those were all with the last gen car. That was not with this new / next gen car. So I don't mind it. You can actually run a Roval style race at Texas. So I would be interested to see if they, mix it up a little bit. Texas, it could use some help. So, if we decide to do it at Texas, I don't think people would go, oh no, something different at Texas versus what we've had before. But thankfully, even the next gen cars help Texas a little bit. So that being said, you kind of touched on it briefly. Let me know who's in, and it says who goes home, but technically they're in North Carolina. So who just stays home?
Oh, so I think you go to, you're gonna hate when I say this. Kyle Busch. I think Reddick was really good in that car. I think Reddick was terrific at road courses in that car. I don't think Kyle's have shown the same speed. I will say I think Kyle Busch is the obvious one, the first one to go home. He hasn't shown me enough on the road courses yet to prove that. For all the people out there, the black flag.
Just keep going. Whatever.
I think Bubba Wallace, obviously not a road course guy.
How can you not say Bubba Wallace before my guy actually had a chance to win?
I was going to order.
And you waited to go second to go to Kyle Busch and then go to Bubba Wallace. Like they're even mentioning in the same breath. Oh my God. Well, enjoy your last time on here, Travis. Jesus Christ. This is awful.
Well, I think Bubba's gonna go way back now. Let's see here. I think it's a very big toss up. I think Brad Kane, I think RFK has shown some speed at road courses. I think Reddick's got some speed in the road courses too. I think he's shown the next gen that he has it. He has what it takes. I think he's got the most road course wins with the next gen right now. I think he's actually I think he'll advance. I think Brad is going to be the other one out, and along with Chastain. Chastain's got to win. I think they're going to be aggressive, but he hasn't. I think last year Trackhouse showed some speed on road courses, but I don't think they got it. So I think you got Bubba going out, Chastain, Brad K, and your man Kyle Busch is going to be the 4 cent home.
Brian, I can confirm in person that Travis is not a closet Bubba fan. Actually,
Brian, he's one of my buddies.
I figured as much. But I almost saw a Matt Crafton incident in the parking lot with somebody carrying a pizza. So I'm going to say that probably is not the case. So I'm glad Brian. So, oh boy. And now the chat. See, this is where things get off. So let me counter one of your points or talk about one of your points. And I agree with most of them. I will say this: out of the drivers facing elimination, Tyler Reddick has the best chance to win, and so does Kyle Busch because they've actually won on road courses before. When it comes to RFK, Chris Buescher's been really good at road courses. Brad Keselowski, not. He's pretty average. And then Bubba Wallace, to me, is he's by far the worst road course driver out there. As good as he's been in other, at other tracks. Man, what is with you guys? I'm about to disable the chat. As good as he's been at other tracks here recently, he just didn't set himself up good enough here this last couple races, especially at Talladega. He never really competed up front, and I thought that was kind of shocking for Bubba because that's, a track he's traditionally been good at even before, this increase in speed and increase at 23:11. The only thing about Tyler Reddick is he hasn't really been running that great. I thought that they've had some speed too, but he hasn't been running as good as Bubba. So, I mean, if he does end up winning, it will be because he has momentum. I think that it's because really he is what Chase Elliott is now with the next gen car on road courses to what, he just doesn't get that title because I guess he's Tyler Reddick. But I will agree with you. I actually think all of those same things. I think that it will be Tyler Reddick advancing over Brad Keselowski, and that the Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Brad K, and Ross Chastain are the ones eliminated. So at the end of the day, I'm going to hope that Kyle wins. I mean, he has nothing to lose. So hopefully Kyle can piss a few guys off. It's been a while since he's done that. You got to be aggressive in the playoffs, and there's no better time. He is my favorite driver. So it's just me standing on a soapbox talking about my favorite guy. So, I won't do that to people, but, I think you really hit the nail on the head based upon what we've seen so far, traditionally and with the next gen car, Travis. I think, what you lined out is probably the way it's going to go.
Yeah, and I think, you got Larson up there plus 15. You got Bell and Busher, and, I think Martin's up there too. Martin hadn't been very, very well either. He's kind of been sliding on the thin of his teeth. Denny's in. But I think, those four that I just mentioned, I think if they just go out there in the first two stages and just take the stage points instead of pitting like most of them do, I think they advance, in flying colors. I think the only one that's, Tyler and Brad, I think they got to play a little game. I think they got to go to almost the opposite of each other. I think Brad's going to go for the stage point side. I would probably assume that Tyler is going to follow whatever Brad does, kind of stay close, and maybe at the end of the race, he's going to have more speed, in my opinion. Although, like you said, he hadn't been very much, but I think he's been decent on road courses. And I think Bubba, Chastain, and Kyle, I think they got to win. I think that's you can point your way in, but I think. It's close. Like I said, you're going to have a really good day and, beg for some help to get in if they don't win.
This over here is autographed Christopher Bell car. So, Christopher Bell, I challenge your energy from last year on winning when you had to in the playoffs to make it to the next round. So, hopefully that'll help. But so, Christopher Bell twice faced elimination and both times won those races. So, could definitely use that from the former and now deceased Kyle Busch Motorsports driver. But Brian, I was reading this comment. See, this is why I don't need to put the comments up. I disagree. I think Busch will come through, and he definitely will piss someone off along the way. I hope so, Brian. We're now best friends. Travis, do you have anything else before we close it out here on the weekly live stream?
No, thanks for letting me come on. Hope people enjoyed and stuff like that. It's always nice to talk NASCAR. That's what I live and breathe and love to do and talk about. And thanks for having me on. And hopefully there's many more if you let me come back on. I won't talk about Kyle Busch like that anymore. That's my only one time of me talk about him for you.
Well, I mean, if we do the post race show, Travis, you might have to be my rock whenever he's eliminated. So if you do want to support the channel, make sure you go to the Facebook page. If you want to donate to the Patreon stream, we can get Travis a flashlight if he's on the channel again to, brighten up that pretty face of his. And also, if you want to support us on Rumble, feel free to follow us on all of those different avenues. And also make sure in the chat you wish Travis a happy birthday. We do have one request. Zach wants to know your opinion on Bowman. Shoot it straight, Travis.
I can't talk about a Hendrick Motorsports guy. I like Bowman. I always wanted to give him a chance. I got a little soft spot for him. I think Bowman still has some improvement to do. He hasn't been very impressive in the next gen car at all. I think at the very beginning of the year, he was probably the best. He obviously was leading the points when he got hurt. But I think I have a soft spot for him. It's hard to be judgmental. In 21, he had 4 wins. I think some of them were I think the one he got from Larson at Pocono, and then he kind of hit Denny to move him out of the way at Martinsville. I think there's definitely, some odds and ends on that, but I like him. He's a Hendrick guy. I have a soft spot for him. He also races dirt. Well, not anymore. He's done with that. Can't get hurt his back anymore, but I think he could be a little bit more aggressive, but he has his moments. I have a soft spot for him. If he left Hendrick, I'd be a little sad, but at the same time, I know probably maybe someone a little better could fill that ride. But, it is what it is. I have a soft spot for him. I can't talk bad about the Hendrick. I love seeing an underdog get a chance. So I can't complain about that.
Yeah, he put that in there because you were nice about him. And if you want to support Patreon, we can help get Travis a new motor. That's not what it says in there, but we can do that. So again, guys, thank you all. We will be here after the Roval and talk about all the things that happen. And hopefully we get a Kyle Busch win so I can do a bow. But my name is Ryan Peters for Travis Sputt. This has been Stuck in the Catch Fence. We'll catch you next time.